Hello and welcome back to the Jolly Ranchers YouTube channel. We are just me, solo developing a video game called The Kid Detective, and our beloved editor, who does this for free, as do I. I hope you enjoy. This week we are doing Making Monkey Island Episode 2, and we will be displaying a better point-and-click movement controller, and I'll show you that in just a second. But before I do, thank you so much for all signing up to be beta testers. We have everything we need, and the demo is improving. It's coming along, and so thank you very much, and please subscribe and comment and like if you are enjoying these or if you want to see more from the Monkey Island tutorial. They will take some time, but that's just the way it's gotta be. Here's the demo. Alright, in this video we will make movement that looks like this. See how I smoothly glide around the desk? And if we want to move the desk, here is the blue representation of the Nav Mesh. We can just grab the desk or anything in our scene, move it around like so, and then if we go to the Nav Mesh and we press this handy dandy button, bake it in the oven, our Nav Mesh will change, and presto, our character's head will be obscured by the desk. We'll fix that next time. But look, the character can smoothly glide around things. They don't get caught on walls like last week's episode. It's just better, and in fact, I think it's easier. So let's get down to business to defeat the Huns. So this is what we ended with last week. We did the little perspective trick. We're sticking against walls, but it works. It's just not going to be as smooth as this week. So first things first, we're going to download 2D Nav Mesh from this GitHub link, which I will post in the comments below. You're going to extract the files from the zip file that you download, like so. You can put it wherever you want in your own filing system of organization, but I'm just going to open it in my downloads, and there it is. And now I'm going to minimize this so I can drag the folder directly into my projects folder, wherever I might want. This is terribly disorganized, but you know, I have some folders in here. It's respectable. Okay, so taking a look at the scene from last week, we have the boundary collider at the edge of the room, which we do not need anymore. And so we're going to go up here to this plus button, and we're going to pull up the drop-down menu, and we need a tile map because the 2D Nav Mesh works with tile maps only. So if you open it up and go to the tile map, we are going to rename it something like ground. Ground with an exclamation point maybe. And we are going to go down here and add a component to it. A polygon collider 2D. You can type it in up there. As you can see, I already did it because I've done my research. And here it is, this pentagon. We can press the Edit Collider button and stretch it out to fill the scene. We're going to make it the area of a walkable area. As you can see, you can click on any line to drag a new point. And if you want to delete a point, you grab it and press Delete while you are left clicking and holding. And now we have the area that I want my player to be able to walk on. And so I'm going to stop editing, and I'm going to go down here and push is trigger. I don't know if you need to do that, but I do, and it still works. So I'm going to add another component, the Nav Mesh modifier, and you have to click Override Area, and as you can see, it already says walkable. And there are 3 types built in with this 2D Nav Mesh: walkable, not walkable, and jump. But for the ground, we want it to be walkable. So now we need to create the actual Nav Mesh. So press the plus button up here and create empty, which will create an empty game object, which I am going to name Nav Mesh! Exclamation point. And I'm going to go up here and reset the transform so it's back at 0, 0. And we're going to add another component. Type in Nav Mesh Surface 2D is what you want. And we are going to make it use physics colliders to decide what navigates around what. As you can see, we already made the polygon collider. And down here it says you have to rotate it to -90 in the rotation of the transform. So we're going to go do that because this is made for 3D. And 3D has the Y and Z values flipped. And so with 2D, we need to rotate it -90 degrees to make it work. So as you can see, it's set to work with humanoid agents, which is good because we want a humanoid character. And these are the settings that I use to work with my humanoid character because my character is actually quite small. The pixels per unit are 100 on my character sprite, which means 0.01 Unity units big. So the first thing I'm going to do is press bake on the Nav Mesh. And as you can see, it didn't do anything. You don't see the blue platform that I showed at the beginning of the video. But if, in my case, if you move the Nav Mesh at all, it immediately shows the blue surface again. I'm not sure why this is. It seems a little bit buggy. I saw it in a different video do the same kind of thing. They tried to bake it the first time, and it seems no matter where I move it after the first time, it seems to bake. As you can see, I move it all the way over here to the left, and it bakes anyway. So as long as you see a blue walkable surface after you press bake, you might not see it because this show nav mesh box isn't ticked. And as you can see, if I tick it, you can see the blue nav mesh again. So this doesn't work yet because we don't have the humanoid agent that we set up yet, and we're going to set it up on our player game object. I've removed the capsule collider because we don't need it. I haven't removed the rigid body because I don't know, so you can test that out. But I added a new Nav Mesh agent component here because this wants to be our Nav Mesh agent. And these are the settings that I put down here that I found worked for me. I put in 1 speed because, as I said, my character is so small that I just didn't want them to move that fast. The steering area and the obstacle avoidance area are places you probably want to play with to get the movement feeling just like you want it to feel. So now we're going to go into the target script that we made last week. I don't know why I didn't name it point and click controller, but here we are. And here's how it looked last week. And first things first is we're going to need to add a Unity Engine.ai namespace to access some of the functions of the Nav Mesh. As long as you type in exactly what I type in, it should work for you too. I'm going to now add a private Nav Mesh agent variable so that we can, and I'm going to call it agent, so that we can talk to the player's agent script. As you can see, if I comment out the namespace up here using double backslashes, it will not understand the words Nav Mesh agent, but because we use the namespace, it understands what we're talking about. So down here in the start method, there are some things that came along with that GitHub repository, and it told me to add these 3 lines of text. Agent equals get component Nav Mesh agent, so that our script understands that we are talking about the Nav Mesh agent component that is on our player. And these update rotation and update up axis both being false probably has to do with the 3D nature into 2D, and we don't want it to rotate on the z-axis. So let's go down to the update method, and this is really all in the script if you're joining in on this video for the first time that you have to copy. We made a variable called mouse position. We set it equal to camera.main.screen-to-world-point, and that point will be wherever our mouse position is. We said if we click the left button, which is what input.getMouseButtonDown 0 means. If we click the left mouse button, then we'll make a follow spot that will be equal to a new coordinate, a new vector2 called mousePosition.x and mousePosition.y. So now we have the coordinate of where we click. And so down here, I'm going to comment out this old move towards tween that we made last week. We don't need that anymore. And I am going to write something new called agent.setDestination. And this will set our AI agent to a vector3, which we want to be followspot.x, followspot.y, and transform.position.z. Whatever our transform position on the z-axis is, we want it to stay the same because we're moving in 2D space. Oh, and it got angry at me because it doesn't know that these three things are a vector3, a 3-point coordinate. So I'm going to say new vector3, and I'm going to wrap it all in another set of parentheses. So with these lines of code added, that's it. I'm going to destroy this onCollisionStay thing because we're not using colliders in the same way as we were last week. And I'm going to just get rid of this adjust perspective thing because a smart commenter last week had a better idea for the formula than I did. So I'm going to cover that next time when we make things look good and animate things. So as you can see, when we go into play mode, it already works. We are gliding smoothly around, and we're not catching on walls or anything. It is functional. Wowza. There is a little something strange here that you might run into. My sprite on that side was like overlapping the wall, but not on the other side. And that had to do with, in my assets, my sprites on NPC sprite sheet 1_6. My sprites were cut out with the pivot point on the far bottom left. And so it was hanging out to the right because I needed to move my pivot point to the center bottom. So because I'm using pixel art, and because the original Monkey Island used pixel art, if you switch pivot point mode to pixels, the pivot point will snap to the pixel you want. You won't get distortion between pixels. So I'm just going to put mine at 8 because that's roughly the center of my little character here. And you'll need about this many character sprites of your character to animate next week. There's plenty available on opengameart.org or the like, or you can make your own. These are really easy to make. So I fixed all that, and I rebaked for whatever paranoid reason. I'm not sure you need to, but if you go in, as you can see, that issue is fixed. If you're having a bit of collision problems, you can't tell why your player is like overlapping things or not going as close to something as the Nav Mesh would indicate, that may be the reason why. Okay, and now we're going to add an obstacle to the scene, and this is why this point-and-click controller is superior to the one we did last week. I'm going to drag this desk in, and I'm going to name it desk. And I am going to reset these numbers. As I said, pixels in 100 pixels per unit are worth 0.01, so I like to keep those numbers to the 100th decimal place. And I am going to duplicate my tile map here called ground, because we are going to use a lot of the same components. And I'm going to name it desk, ! Which is my naming procedure here. Got to keep consistency. I'm going to go down here to the Nav Mesh modifier, and easy as that, I'll change it to not walkable, the area type. And now we can adjust the polygon collider that we had already on the duplicated object. I'm going to set it to the rough place where I want to collide with the desk. And you can also use the points, the paths down here to more accurately place your colliders if you want. I'm just going to do that for whatever reason. Zip, zip, zip. I'm going to drag the desk sprite under the tile map so that they stay together, so that we can move them as a unit later. It's just easier if you need to move something in your scene. You don't have to move the desk and then move the collider. You can move them together. And now all we need to do is rebake now that we have a not walkable Nav Mesh modifier. And as you can see, it cuts it right out of that Nav Mesh already. As you can see, we can't walk behind the desk here, so we might want to make a bit more room. Oh, and as you can see as well, we cannot see the desk. So we need to go down here to our desk sprite, which I renamed desk sprite, and change the order in layer to something higher than the background. And that will definitely make it appear. And as you can see already in this tiny little game view, we are swerving around that desk flawlessly. We can't go on the other side of it, as we can see, because the Nav Mesh, it's too finicky about that space, which you can change using some of the settings on the Nav Mesh or the humanoid agent navigation. But for now, I'm just going to move it up to show how easy it is to change around. I'm going to rebake it, and it cuts it right out. And yeah, even though our player's head is cut off by the desk, because we are going to need to dynamically change the sorting layer of the player in sort of a top-down environment like this. But as you can see, we can click anywhere in the room and the player will not get caught on the desk like it did last episode. It will navigate around it, and it's easy peasy. Okay, that is all for this week. You can adjust the navigation and the scale of the Nav Mesh by adjusting those settings on the Nav Mesh itself, as well as the humanoid agent settings. If your Nav Mesh is like too small and you can't get close to the wall, it may be because it thinks your agent is massive. Next week, we will do animation, so your character will look like they're walking, and we will adjust the sorting layer so you're in front of things when you're supposed to be in front of things, and behind things when you're not supposed to be. This is all in an effort to give you almost more tools than is necessary to build a very basic point-and-click video game. But Monkey Island used some more advanced tricks and advanced illusions inside of it. And so I wanted to get into that to learn for myself and to hopefully provide a resource, because when people go to Fungus, the thing we will be using for the dialogue and the narrative in future episodes, when people come to Fungus, which is a free visual scripting tool, they often are looking to make a point-and-click game, and they don't have the character controller built in. That's because it's quite difficult to make a universal character controller and a universal inventory system for all games, but here on this channel, I aim to please. So if you like this series, please comment, subscribe, like, share with friends, hit the post notifications to get the new episodes, because I am really enjoying it. So thank you very much, and until next time, stay jolly.